Elias Thorne's world was a symphony of diesel and steel. He ran the wrench of time, a small, perpetually greasy garage tucked just off the forgotten stretch of route 93. For 3 years, since his wife Sarah passed, the garage had been his clock, his calendar, and his casket. Every tool was exactly where she last saw it. Every drop cloth lay as she had left it. Elias himself was a monument to functional grief, meticulous, silent, and entirely closed off from the messy, unpredictable engine of life. He worked alone, preferring the predictable grind of rusted bolts to the volatile nature of human emotion. The only thing he kept close was the fading scent of her favorite rosemary soap that sometimes clung to the old leather apron hanging in his office. He hadn't cleaned it. He never would. It was a blistering Tuesday afternoon when the old Ford Falcon sputtered its last breath right outside his bay door. Elias squinted, wiping oil from his brow. He didn't like late-day drop-offs. A moment later, the driver's side door opened, and the sun seemed to tilt on its axis. Out stepped a woman, mid-20s, dressed in worn denim, holding a sketchbook close to her chest. She had a cascade of light brown hair pulled back with a bandana, and she walked with Sarah's unmistakable, slightly uneven gait, a small skip Elias had memorized. But it was her face that stopped the blood in his veins. The curve of her jaw, the slight upward tilt of her nose, and the way her eyes crinkled when she frowned at the dead engine. It was a precise, terrifying echo of his dead wife. "Oh, thank God you're open," she said, her voice a little gravelly from the road, a resonance that was Sarah's, yet distinctly not. "I think the alternator just decided to quit on me, maybe? I'm Clara, and my name is literally the only thing running right now." Elias didn't move. He stood frozen, his hand still holding a crescent wrench. Clara's initial annoyance faded, replaced by concern as she saw the sheer, naked shock in his deep-set eyes. He looked, she thought, like he'd just seen a ghost walk out of a solid concrete wall. He managed finally to croak out a single, devastatingly quiet phrase, his eyes locked on her face. You look like my dead wife." The air thickened, suffocating the buzzing summer heat. Clara stepped back, startled and suddenly defensive. This was not the standard mechanic greeting. I'm sorry," she stammered, crossing her arms protectively. Elias swallowed hard, trying to reel himself back in, scrambling for the professional detachment that defined his life. "My apologies, miss, it was a terrible shock." He cleared his throat. "Falcon, you said? Pop the hood, let me take a look." Clara hesitated but complied, wary yet sensing the man's sincerity beneath the bizarre outburst. As she leaned over the fender to pull the latch, the neckline of her cotton shirt shifted, and a flash of silver caught the dim garage light. It was a necklace, a heavy, unique silver pendant shaped like a half-moon cradling a tiny, perfect amber bead. Elias's breath hitched again. This wasn't just resemblance. This was confirmation. He had carved that amber bead himself years before Sarah, in a moment of youthful, foolish confidence. It was a one-of-a-kind piece. He had melted down a silver coin, cast the crescent, and set the amber for Sarah's 20th birthday, symbolizing their first shared promise to never be afraid of incomplete futures. Sarah had lost it, or so they thought, during a backpacking trip years before their marriage. "That necklace," Elias said, his voice now dangerously low, demanding attention. Clara covered it instinctively. "What about it? Where did you get it?" "The amber, the setting. I made one exactly like it. It can't be a coincidence." Clara hesitated, clutching the pendant. "It was my grandmother's. She said it was a gift from a friend. When she was very young, a friend she never saw again after she moved away from the coast. That night, the garage stayed open late. Not for repairs, but for a history lesson." Elias told Clara about Sarah, the way she laughed at his corny jokes, her passion for gardening, the accident that took her, and the necklace he thought was lost forever. Clara listened, occasionally touching the cool metal of the pendant. Then she pulled out a worn photograph from her sketchbook. "This is my grandmother, Alara, when she was 20. Elias took the photo, his hand trembling. Standing next to a vibrant, smiling Alara was a girl with familiar, mischievous eyes, and a mass of dark, wild curls. It wasn't Sarah, but the likeness was uncanny, like a family resemblance pulled back a generation. The girl in the photo was holding a silver pendant. "That's Sarah," Elias whispered, tears finally, painfully, wetting his grime-stained cheeks. But before I met her, she never told me about a sister or a cousin named Alara. The mystery of the necklace led them down a path Elias had deliberately avoided for years. Sarah's passed before him. Through old letters tucked away in a dusty trunk, they found the truth. Alara wasn't a relative. She was Sarah's closest childhood friend. When Sarah was 19, just after receiving the necklace, she and Alara had planned a crazy, ambitious move across the country. But Sarah backed out last minute due to a family crisis, leaving Alara to go alone, heartbroken by the perceived betrayal. In a parting rush, Sarah had given Alara the necklace, the symbol of their shared promise for a better future, as a silent apology and a token of eternal friendship. They never reconnected. Too much time and hurt passed. Clara was Alara's granddaughter, and the necklace had become a revered, almost mystical family heirloom. The resemblance was simply the way certain souls looked when they carried the same fierce loyalty in their eyes. The revelation wasn't a romance, but something deeper, a familial healing. Elias had spent 3 years believing Sarah's love for him was the only thing holding her memory together. Now he found a whole new wing of her life, a chapter he hadn't written, represented by the very person who looked like her echo. Clara, who was traveling the country, sketching landscapes and running from the pressure of a stalled career, saw in Elias the stability and quiet strength she craved. She realized her own artistic stagnation stemmed from a fear of commitment, a fear her grandmother, Alara, had inadvertently passed down after Sarah's perceived abandonment. Clara's falcon needed more than an alternator. It needed days of work. During that time, they fell into an unlikely rhythm. Clara would sketch in the corner, capturing the shadows and light of the cluttered garage while Elias worked. She didn't pry, but she was present. One evening, Elias, realizing he couldn't stand to look at the dark, closed door of Sarah's old home office any longer, finally asked Clara to help him pack it up. It was a task he had put off for 100 days. As they sorted through sketchbooks and half-finished poems, the silence wasn't grief. It was shared memory. Clara didn't try to replace Sarah. She simply held the light so Elias could see the room again. The final day arrived when the Falcon's engine roared to life, clean and strong. Clara's art portfolio was brimming with new sketches, inspired by the texture of rust and the honesty of worn-out tools. Elias, standing taller than he had in years, refused payment for the labor. "You fixed something in here that was far more broken than that engine," he said, tapping his chest. He pulled out a small, wrapped object, a freshly carved piece of amber, polished to a brilliant sheen, set in a simple copper ring. "It's a different kind of promise, Clara. A promise that you will stop driving away from your gift. You're an artist, not just a traveler. Go do the work." Clara cried then, a clean, bright, grateful cry. She slipped the ring on, the amber warm against her skin, and hugged the old mechanic, a long, genuine embrace that felt like the closing of a painful circle. She drove away, not leaving, but finally moving forward. Elias didn't rush back into the garage. He stood in the sunlight, feeling the wind against his face, a wind that smelled like oil, promise, and a future he hadn't allowed himself to believe in. The grief was still there, but it had softened, no longer a heavy stone, but a smooth river rock, a foundation for new beginnings. He realized that Sarah hadn't been lost. She had simply become the bridge that connected him to the rest of the world. And that, viewers, is the heart of what we do here on Stories That Mend. This story isn't just about a necklace. It's about how sometimes the end of a love story is actually the beginning of a life story, teaching us that healing is rarely solitary. It often arrives disguised as chance encounter. Elias found not a replacement for his wife, but an expansion of her legacy, a new kind of family and a path back to the living. If Elias's journey from mechanic to mender resonated with you, let us know in the comments. Have you ever had a chance meeting that changed your life? Share your story below. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more true tales of hope and healing.